Well, good evening and welcome. I'm Frank Librio, the president of the Press Club of Dallas. Thank you all for being here. Again, we have an oversold crowd. Wow, great news for the Press Club of Dallas. Thank you all for your support. We also don't mind if you keep your phones on and spread tonight's news using the hashtag PCD Legends16. So please feel free to do that. We'd like you to share the news tonight of all the honorees. Tonight we honor 13 journalists who clearly rise to the level of excellence. These 13 individuals will join 70 other Hall of Fame inductees over the past 5 years. All of their careers are marked by truth, transparency, and a wealth of experience built on a strong ethical foundation, and you're going to meet them soon. First, I'd like to recognize the past honorees that are with us tonight. And when I call your name, if you could please, I know it's tight in there, if you would stand so you can be recognized and we can salute you, starting with Gloria Campos. Carolyn Barta. John Good Johnson. Jimmy Lovell. Jimmy here, Jimmy Lovell. Bob Mong. Bob Ray Sanders, Carlton Stowers, Bobby Wygant, and Hugh Ainsworth. Also, past honoree Clarice Tinsley had to bow out at the last moment to do the newscast on Fox 4, but she's here in support of Phil Alvarado, so we thank Clarice as well. All of the legends in attendance are among the greatest journalists in North Texas. Thank you for being here and supporting both the Press Club and the new honorees. And a big thank you to our event chairs, Carrie Broussard, in red here, and Hugh Ainsworth, and to our judges, Hugh Ainsworth, Ed Bark, and Rena Peterson, who's off to another speech tonight. I'd also like to thank our sponsors who, if we did not have these wonderful, gracious, and generous folks, tonight would not be possible. They're on your screen there. Philips Media Source, thank you. Broussard Global Communications, Foundation for Responsible Television, the McQuistion Program, The Ticket 1310 AM, ESPN Dallas 103.3 FM, NBC5, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, the Dallas Morning News, Fox 4, the Dallas Convention and Visitors Bureau, KERA, Baylor Scott and White, Gloria Campos, Whole Foods Lakewood, and the Sixth Floor Museum at Dealey Plaza. And please welcome at this time Executive Director Nicola Longford.
Thank you so much. Good evening. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all here to the Sixth Floor Museum at Dealey Plaza. Frank, thank you so much. The Dallas Press Club and the North Texas legends that are being honored tonight, and all of you for being here. This is a very important historic space. And while you're here this evening, if you have time, I hope that you will tour our new exhibit, A Time for Greatness, the 1960 Kennedy Campaign. It opened on May the 20th and is going to be running all the way through the election period through November. May 20th would have been JFK's 99th birthday, and we are kicking off a whole centennial of commemorative planning in his honor. In 2017, he would have been 100 years old. And we're developing a massive exhibit on pop culture as he's been featured through the decades. But this current exhibit, and through related programming, it's a perfect opportunity to compare and contrast the 1960 Nixon-Kennedy campaign with what is going on right now in this very unusual election process. And this small display does highlight portions of the museum's collections. Most of our museum's collections of 55,000 items are not on display because we just do not have enough space. But there are many photo ops. So there's a campaign desk in this exhibit and behind here, so if you want to have any funny pictures taken of yourself, please indulge. And I also want to thank you all so much for the great work that you do on a local level and also on a national level. We are really, truly honored to host you. And as we reflect on this unusual campaign year, I feel compelled to quote John F. Kennedy's 1957 Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Profiles in Courage, and what I think is a really apropos statement for today. A nation which has forgotten the quality of courage, which in the past has been brought to public life, is not as likely to insist upon or regard that quality in its chosen leaders today. And in fact, we have forgotten. Anyway, welcome and enjoy the evening, and congratulations to all the awardees.
Thank you. And now it's my honor to introduce our host for the evening. Christy Nelson's fascination with journalism started when she was just 9 years old, and Santa left her a typewriter under the Christmas tree. She soon began writing about topics she saw on TV, turning her stories into a newspaper, which she sold to family members for 25 cents a copy. Not bad. Fast forward more than 3 decades, and Christy is now a multiple award-winning journalist and the anchor of NBC5, First at 4, Lone Star Politics, and 5 Talk Street. She can also be seen throughout the week reporting for NBC5's evening newscasts. Christy started her journalism career as a newspaper reporter, spending several summers as an intern at the Dallas Morning News before joining the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Cincinnati Enquirer. She then worked in the National Basketball Association's communications department, where she wrote feature articles for NBA-branded publications and was part of the media relations team for 2 major events, such as the NBA Finals, the league's All-Star Weekend, and the NBA Draft. In recent years, Christy has distinguished herself through coverage of issues relating to race, culture, ethnicity, communities, and health. In August 2011, she donated a kidney to her mother and documented the process in a multiple-part series called Christy's Gift. Included on her trophy shelf are 2 Lone Star Emmys and an award for the National Alliance for Women in Media, the Gracie Award. That already sounds pretty legendary. Please welcome Christy Nelson.
Good evening, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. This is my 2nd year hosting this wonderful event. I was so honored to be asked again, and so happy to see so many faces I recognize and people I've admired for so many years. So thank you for having me here. We've got 13 honorees tonight. We've got news anchors, reporters, newspaper columnists, a meteorologist, a pair of sports radio personalities, acclaimed authors, and pioneering entrepreneurs. And all of our news legends have very strong and significant ties to North Texas, and they continue to live here in the state. They were selected by a panel of Press Club members who are also veteran journalists. So of course, we're fortunate to have every single one of them with us tonight. They join 68 previous honorees, as you heard Frank say, so it's a very distinguished club, and you'll now hear from them in alphabetical order as they take their bows, and they'll tell you a little bit more about themselves. I'll tell you a little bit, but I'll let them tell you about themselves as well. So, are you ready to get started? All right. Well, let's hear first from Dallas Morning News columnist Norma Adams Wade. She grew up in South Dallas, and she started her career as a copy editor with NASA's Apollo space program. And then she worked at an advertising firm before joining the Dallas Morning News in 1974 as the paper's first full-time African-American reporter and columnist. In 1985, she created the DMN's Black History Month series, and 3 years later, she helped to launch the Metro South Bureau. Norma Adams Wade also is a founding member in 1975 of the National Association of Black Journalists. Everyone, please help me welcome Norma Adams Wade.
Hi, everybody. I have 3 minutes, so you may time me. I did some math recently, and the numbers told me that it has been 50 years since I blew out the candles and left the University of Texas at Austin with a journalism degree under my belt. Included in that 50 years is 42 years writing for the Dallas Morning News, covering general assignments, consumer affairs, federal courts, and opening the Metro South Bureau that enabled me to write about the communities and neighborhoods in Dallas where I grew up. During that 42 years, I often was asked, how have you managed to stay so long? The answer is complex, and yet it's simple. Aside from relying on my higher power that I call God, much of what I do with pen and paper or a computer screen is in my DNA, as it is with many of my colleagues. Words that could be used to describe why I do what I do might include driven, on a mission, obsessed. I personally would use one overriding term from West Africa, and that is griot. Griot. The person in ancient Africa who kept the village oral history and lineage of village families, who retold stories for present and future generations, a kind of town crier, chronicler of all the news fit to tell. Because I see myself as a griot, I do what I do, and I enjoy it. I did my share of investigative exposés early on, but what I truly enjoy and have written about before is shining positive light on other people. Here's the good part. I get to feel a special satisfaction when someone says, "Thank you for telling my story," which is the thing I enjoy doing anyway. You, my dear cohorts, have expressed to me a similar thank you this evening, and in turn, I must tell you thank you. You let me know I am not a tree falling in the forest where no one hears the crashing sound. I am not a voice crying hopelessly in the wilderness. You convince me that I have been heard. Odabo, asante sana, hotep. See you later. Thank you so very much, and peace.
Thank you, Norma, and congratulations to you. Take some more pictures, Norma. Okay, our next honoree has been a sturdy, trusty pavement pounder for Fox 4 for the past 31 years. Phil Alvarado grew up on his grandfather's farm in the Texas Panhandle, and at Fox 4, he remains devoted to chasing stories and reporting them both fairly and unobtrusively on newscasts throughout the day and night. So everyone, please help me welcome and honor Phil Alvarado.
Hey, thank you so much. You know, when I first heard that Ed Bark was looking for me, I thought, I said, I still got a year left on my contract. Let's see what. Does he know something I don't know? And he did. He had some just amazing news for me, and I'm just so honored to be here tonight, and just very, very proud. Also want to thank my family who is here. That is a huge, huge part of my life. First on the list is my wife, Maria. She keeps me grounded. She is my biggest fan, and I just hope she knows that I'm her biggest fan. And my grandson is here too, and that's especially pleasing to me because I'm a firm believer that you know, you should make your biggest impression with those that will carry on after you. And which is why I finally stopped minding when I'd run into people and they'd say, hey, you know, I have been watching you since I was a little kid. And the thing about that is that, you know, I thought, you know, I kind of cringed at first, but I thought at least they're still watching. And, but I'm not sure, but I think I'm working on my third generation now. But when you run into some of these folks on the street, you know, they're very kind about your work most of the time. And while that's gratifying, just to be recognized by the Dallas Press Club and so many of you that, you know, I know and admire and respect, it's just incredible for me, and you don't know how big an honor it is. But I accept this award, you know, in the name of everyone who's helped me along the way since the very early years, you know, the people at WBAP, at KRLD, and certainly at Fox 4, which, you know, now will always be the cornerstone of my career. They've done so much. For one, they've let me stick around. They've helped me grow and just, you know, do what I want to do. And, you know, my first job was KCRS in Midland. And I got a little anxious there and wanted to move on, and my boss talked to me, my general manager, and convinced me to stay a little bit longer. And what he said to me was, you know, he says, Phil, he goes, just put your head down and work hard, because your career will take care of itself. And as it turns out, he was right. I would add one more thing to that bit of advice, and that is, you know, pick your head up once in a while and look around at, you know, all the people that, you know, that support you, you know, that help you live your dream every day, and or maybe just are glad to see you in the place you are right now. And, you know, tonight, I see a whole lot of you guys out there doing the very same thing, and I couldn't ask for anything more. Just thank you very much.
And while Phil is getting his photos taken, we'll move on to our next honoree, who was born in Tyler and educated at the University of North Texas. Steve Blow started his newspaper career with short stints at the Fort Worth Press and Corpus Christi Caller-Times before he joined the Dallas Morning News in 1978. And in 1989, the newspaper asked him to become one of its Metro section columnists. And by his count, he wrote 3,000 columns, often with an unapologetically folksy approach. He retired in September of 2015, just last year. He had that common touch and an ability to tell everyday stories with universal themes. Everyone, please help me welcome and honor Steve Blow.
Thank you, Christy.
Very nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, you know, a question that would sometimes come up over the almost 27 years of writing that column, when I would run into a reader, and usually a particularly bold one, they would say to me, "Is Blow really your name?" To which I would say, "Would I make that up? If I were going for a pen name, I promise I could do better." Yes, Blow is really my name. Perhaps I was born to be a columnist, or a porn star, or a drug dealer. I'm not sure. But let me just say, of the options, I'm so glad that I stumbled into journalism. And not just those other two, I mean all the options. I feel so grateful to have stumbled into this business, and I literally did stumble into it. One of the things that also a question that came up was, how did you get into journalism? And I think people were always looking for a warm, nostalgic story, you know, about an English teacher or an uncle with a weekly paper or something. Man, I wish I had one of those stories. How did I get into journalism? It's a one-word answer: calculus. Calculus. Do we have anybody else that began as an engineering major? And yeah, that chemical engineering major did not last long, even at Tyler Junior College. And I was quickly hunting for something else and found my way to a journalism class where Dr. Blanche Prejean, God rest her, God bless her, was such a wonderful teacher. Made me feel like this was something perhaps that I really could do and I might have some abilities at, and got me on my way. And then in the same vein, I'd have to say that thank you to the wonderful teachers that I had at North Texas, Keith Shelton and Roy Moses, who further inspired me and encouraged me, and I just do feel so lucky. I want to just thank a few people tonight, chief among them my wife Lori, who, as all you other journalists know, the spouse of a journalist is a particularly difficult, unsung role. I can't tell you how many plans were changed. You know, amen, right? Amen. How many plans were changed at the last minute, thrown out the window because suddenly I had to go cover a story or do something else. And so, Lori, thank you very much. Colleagues along the way who made it such a pleasure. Steve Harris, who I could call both friend and, amazingly, friend and editor. Steve edited my column for most of those years. And yeah, Alan can't believe you could have a friend and an editor, but I was able to have that rare combination. Scott Parks, who's here, who's been a friend since college days at North Texas, and an encouragement and a great person to talk journalism with. Bob Mong over here, who, when I didn't see the talent in myself to try to be a columnist, that just seemed like something, way out of my reach. But Bob saw that I might have some potential in there and encouraged me to give it a try. I said, can I just try it for 6 months and go back to reporting if I don't like it or it doesn't work well? And he said, okay. Well, 27 years later, they finally kicked me out the door. And I do. I just feel so grateful for this honor, for the career that I've had. Thank you so much. When I got that email from Ed Bark, I didn't flinch, Phil, when I got an email from Ed. But when I got that email, I thought, what a wonderful honor. This is really a nice thing. But it was only when I saw the other 12 names that the depth of the honor really kicked in. I feel so honored to be among this group here tonight and those who've received this award previously. Thank you so much.
Our next honoree was born in Waco and raised in Fort Worth. She was a weathercaster and then a reporter for Channel 8's PM Magazine before trying her hand at novel writing back in 1981, and it appears it worked out because she has authored more than 50 New York Times bestsellers in the romantic or thriller suspense genre, 50 bestsellers. She's also written under the pen names of Rachel Ryan, Laura Jordan, and Eric St. Clair, but her name is Sandra Brown. 4 of her books have been adapted as television movies, including French Silk with Susan Lucci and Lee Horsley. Please help me welcome Sandra Brown.
Thank you all so much. I'm looking around this room and I can promise you that I'm the biggest fraud who will cross this stage tonight because most of you kept your jobs. I did not, but I'll get to that. I'm here because of several key people in my life. One was my daddy, who was an editorial writer for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram for many years. Some of you may not know that. He inspired me with his work ethic, that if you're a writer, you go to work every day and you put words on paper that you hope someone will want to read. And it's a hard task, as most of you in this room know. My mother, God bless her, taught my 4 sisters and me a love and appreciation of books and storytelling from a very early age. I don't remember a point in my life when my romantic mother did not read us fairy tales, give us books to read. Books were always my favorite toy, and I never outgrew that. I have to thank Michael, my husband of 48 years this year, who at a point in our life when I had an opportunity, he said, "Are you going to do what you've always said you want to do, and that's write fiction, or are you going to talk about it?" And he put it in the form of a dare that I couldn't pass up. And from the very beginning, that we set up a card table in the spare room with a typewriter on it, he has been my staunchest ally, encourager, supporter, defender, all of that. Owe him a huge note of gratitude. And we even took out a loan to buy my first computer. And most of all, I have to thank the manager at WFAA who called me into his office one day and said, "Your limited talent in this capacity is no longer desired at Challenger." And it turned out okay. Christy, I'm sorry, it's 68 New York Times bestsellers, 80 million copies of books sold worldwide in 34 languages. So every time my name appears on the New York Times bestseller list, I have a special drink and a toast to that manager who fired me. And as I say, I'm a fraud. I don't belong with all of you who have excelled so much in this industry. But thank you so much for honoring me tonight. I truly appreciate it.
I love these speeches. They're great. Well, back in 1978, when newspapers still had the women's editors, Joanne Holt Causey was named to that position at the Oak Cliff Tribune. The newspaper has long since faded, but she continues to be an independent woman of substance. And in 1984, she opened the Holt & Associates Public Relations Agency with her daughter. She retired in 2015, but she and her husband remain active in freelance journalism. Her beats are arts, entertainment, and travel for a variety of print and online outlets. So please help me welcome Joanne Holt Causey.
I can't believe I'm following Sandra Brown, one of my favorite authors. I should be getting her autograph. I want to thank the Press Club of Dallas for this absolutely amazing and totally unexpected honor. I'm not sure what I'm doing with all of these household names, but I guess I was just around a long time, so it's my time. I joined the Press Club in 1982, and I still treasure all the friendships that I've made, and so many of you have taught me so much. I really appreciate everyone in this club and all the opportunities that I've had because of it. When I decided to start doing PR, in fact, it was the people who knew how to do PR that showed me how, because I didn't have a clue. In 1977, there was a former Associated Press reporter named David Wolf, who is here tonight, sitting right there on the third row, who was teaching journalism at Mountain View College. I decided to go back to school as an older student and get some of my basics out of the way before getting my degree in English. Well, this man changed my life. I signed up for an elective journalism class, and it wasn't long before he had me editing the school paper, helping him start a magazine for the school, and by then I was falling totally in love with journalism. I mean, it was so much fun to be able to ask people any kind of question I wanted to, and they didn't slap me. So after that, I knew that what I really wanted to do was be a reporter. So when Ray Zauber, the publisher of the Oak Cliff Tribune, called me and asked me if I wanted to be the women's editor, I said, sure. I mean, I couldn't think of anything that was more rewarding than being a reporter for a small community newspaper. I loved every minute of it. I thought this was going to be a really long, profitable career, but it wasn't long before I found out that there wasn't a lot of money in working for a small community newspaper. I had a good time, but I wasn't making much money, so I had to start a PR business to finance my writing habit. I think a lot of you have had to do something like that along the way. Anyway, this allowed me to stay on the staff for the Tribune 30 more years as a contributing columnist. And by the time the paper folded, after 106 years of publishing, it folded in 2009, my husband and I were part owners, along with Mark Housewright, who's sitting back there, who was our publisher. I have recently returned to journalism as a freelance writer, covering cars, entertainment, and travel. And I'm loving every minute of it again. But I decided, money's not the only thing. Having a good time is is very rewarding too. Thank you so much.
So if you've ever watched NBC5 News, you've probably seen our next honoree correct my facts or tell me I pronounced the name of an obscure Texas town incorrectly. David Finfrock started at NBC5 in 1975 with the blessing of the late legendary Harold Taft. He came to North Texas directly from the Juneau Icefield Research Program in Alaska, and he's been NBC5's chief meteorologist since Taft's death in 1991. We recently observed his 40th anniversary at NBC5 with a special, half-hour special. He plans to retire, he says, at the age of 65 when his final contract expires in May of 2018. And his other passions include volunteering for a lot of organizations, including the Sierra Club, Habitat for Humanity, and Meals on Wheels. Can you imagine David Finfrock bringing you your meal? It's so amazing. So please help me welcome and honor one of my favorite people in the world, David Finfrock.
Yeah, I was really excited when I heard that Christy and I are both going to be here, and then a little disappointed when I found out she wasn't one of the legends being honored. She is quite the legend in our newsroom, I'll let you know. I won't be specific about her legendary talents, but among those, the humor and kind of an irreverent wit certainly are high up there on the list. I am fortunate to work with a lot of great people now and through the years. It's been 40 years now, as Christy mentioned, since I first started at Channel 5 and at WBAP. And like Phil and Randy and some of the others, there are a lot of folks from WBAP who have gone on to other positions. And that was really a great start. We were in the same building early on. And I'm kind of like Phil, I'm one of those who came in not with any grandiose plans for the future, some big career trajectory of where I was headed. I just came in every day, put my head down, and went to work. And I've been doing that for 40 years. As Christy mentioned, 2 years from now, I do plan to retire. I've already talked with the management, and they seem open to the idea of me coming back and helping out maybe during severe storms or when somebody's on vacation, because I really do thoroughly enjoy the work and all the people that I work with. I would miss it all terribly if I were just to walk away and think I was never going to be doing this again. So I'm hoping to keep one foot in the door, but I want to do it on my schedule, not on the boss's schedule, and that I am really looking forward to. Now, I did get my start, as Christy mentioned, when Harold Taft took a chance on a guy coming right out of college, never been on television in his life, and put me on the air 6 days a week. I was doing Monday through Friday mornings plus Saturday night. Harold was paying me at that point. I didn't get a job from Channel 5. I was actually hired by Harold Taft and got a monthly check from Harold E. Taft and Associates for the first 2 years. And then we had a news director come in who found out that he couldn't have fired me if he wanted to, because I didn't work for him. So that didn't work out so well, so I then got on officially as a staff member. But I do want to pass this on to the board of the Press Club. It seems awfully strange for me to be standing here being honored like this, which I so appreciate, but not having had Harold Taft precede me with that honor. So I hope you'll take a look at going back and giving posthumous awards to add. There's a lot of people, I mean, Chip Moody, there are a lot of others who deserve to be in this group, and I hope you will consider a change in that direction in the future. Thank you so much.
Our next honoree has some targeted sports opinions that are uniquely his own. And for more than half a century, Randy Galloway let loose with them in his columns for the Dallas Morning News and Fort Worth Star-Telegram and over the airwaves on WBAP and ESPN's KESN-FM. Dallas Mavericks head coach Rick Carlisle complimented Galloway upon his retirement last year as fun, hardworking, uncompromising, fair, and a total pain in the ass. His favorite targets over the years tended to be the Texas Rangers owners during the many years the team specialized in losing. Please help me welcome Randy Galloway.
Don't worry, these notes say, don't forget to thank Janine. Janine is my wife of 52 years, and God help me if I didn't thank her. After 50 years of sports writing, 29 years of sports talk radio, and you reach this point, and you go back to how did it all start? What was a turning point? A turning point for me, and I know Steve Blow talking about all his honors at North Texas. I flunked out of North Texas in 1964. And I could stand up here and blame drinking and gambling, but actually it was just flat stupidity. But in flunking out of North Texas, my father worked construction all his life, and so he was pretty angry about this, and I went to work at Love Field. This was so long ago. Love Field had one runway. They were building the second runway at Love Field. So I'm up to my butt in concrete. But as the summer went on, and then, of course, I couldn't go back to school to North Texas or anywhere else because I'd flunked out. I couldn't go the fall semester. So I got the nerve, at my wife's urging, and I think my father-in-law too, the great Roy Jennings, who's going, what kind of loser did my daughter marry? I got the nerve to call Walter Robertson, who was sports editor at the Dallas Morning News and a member of this Legends group, by the way, as he should be. And I asked him if I could come up and talk to him, and he said, as for a high school football stringer, for the 1964 season. And so I went up and talked to him, and he said, well, what's your educational background? And I told him, well, I have flunked out of North Texas. He went, all right, I understand that. It will happen. I said, I went a couple of years to, I went first 2 years to Sam Houston State. I had solid grades. I said, solid D's. He said, B's? I said, no, D is in dog. But I was passing. He said, all right, you're hired. So I covered high school football on Friday night. Then Walt called me a couple of weeks later and said, I want you to do a weekly column on some of our surrounding teams outside of the immediate Dallas area. And you do a weekly column on how those districts are shaping up. And he said, I want you to concentrate on some little farm towns up north. Those farm towns were Plano, McKinney, and Frisco. This was a it was a long time ago. But Walt, then I did all that. I'm ready to go back to North Texas in January, get in for the spring semester. And Walt called me again and said, come on in, I want to talk to you. And Janine went, you think he's going to offer you a job? And I went, hell no, he's not, that ain't going to happen. But he went in, he said, there's a job down in Port Arthur. And I went, where? I mean, I'm from up here. He said, Port Arthur, Texas. And the sports editor down there wants to hire a full-time sports writer, and I've recommended you. And I went, well, Walt, I can get back in North Texas in 3 weeks. He went, kind of looked around, he went, Randy, I do not think education is for you. Now, a lot of young people would have been insulted. Hell, I took it as a badge of honor. I went straight to Port Arthur, signed up. Janine and I moved down there, and I loved every bit of it. But that's really how it started, and people along the way. It was the greatest move in the world that Walt sent me down there, and Walt's kind of my godfather because I met old-time newspaper guys down there. They could have worked anywhere in the country because of family, because of situation. They worked for the Port Arthur News. And there was an outdoor editor named Ed Holder, who I later found out was really nationally famous, Texas famous, just a great writer and a great guy. And I turned in a story one day that on a high school team, Port Acres Eagles, and I turned that in. Boy, I was proud of that story. And we were a PM paper. Paper comes out about 11:30, and Ed's over there reading the paper, and I notice he's reading my story. And I'm kind of hanging around because I figured he might say, boy, that's a good one, Randy. So finally he said, hey, Randy, could I talk to you? So I went over, I said, yeah, Ed. He went, let me say this to you. There's only one Blackie Sherrod, and there will always be only one Blackie Sherrod. And I said, Ed, I think I'm taking the hint here. I'm young and dumb, but you're telling me to stop writing like Blackie Sherrod because nobody can do that. And he said, I'm telling you to do it like right now. Don't ever do it again. And that was a great piece of advice from me. Stop trying to copy my hero since 8th grade, Blackie Sherrod, who, of course, we lost him just recently, and Blackie later became a friend and an advisor, and it was a great honor for me. But then Walt called me, Walt Robertson. I'm back at the Morning News. About 14 months later, he hired me, and guys like Walter Robertson and the late John Barker, the late Frank Reese, the late Buster Haas, those guys, I mean, they couldn't have been nicer to me. Young and dumb, but I had great advisors. I had people who wanted to help me. And Sam Blair, I don't think Sam's here tonight, but Sam's also a member of the Legends, as he should be. But there was one story with Sam. I was covering R.L. Turner High School in 1967, and they had a great team. They had been awful the year before, had a great team. Their quarterback was Bill Montgomery, who later went to Arkansas. He was quarterback of Arkansas in the famous big shootout game in 1969 with the University of Texas. But I'm doing this, I'm writing, really, R.L. Turner was our best team in Dallas County and the best team in North Texas. And so they're going through the playoffs and they're winning. And I'm writing, I'm all R.L. Turner, man. I'm rolling on all this. Well, I put a lead in the paper for the morning paper, and it was R.L. Turner, because they'd been so bad the year before. What a great 360 it's been. And I'm pretty proud of this damn lead now, I'm telling you. And Sam Blair, nicest human being in the world. And by the way, somebody on the desk let it go. They could have saved it. Well, so I'm kind of prancing around the office next day. Boy, that was a good one. Sam called me over to his desk and he went, Randy, R.L. Turner they weren't real good last year, right? And I went, right. And He said, and we know they're real good this year. He said, that would be a 180. And you know what? I was so stupid that I really didn't. What? He went, Randy, a 360 means they're bad again. Oh. He said, so just let that be a lesson. But I mean, Sam he was like assistant sports editor. He could have jumped my butt, you idiot. He could have jumped the desk guys, but just did that in such a nice way. Sports talk radio, real quick. People used to meet me, and I know Mike Reiner can talk about this stuff too. And I'd be talking to him for 5 minutes, and he'd go, "You talk exactly the way you talk on the radio." And I'd go, "What do you think? I got a radio voice? I mean, I got a radio face, but I don't have I don't have a radio voice." But the way radio started was because of Norm Hitzges and Brad Sham and a guy named Dan Flanagan at BAP. And I was covering baseball, covering the Rangers. I was always on their shows. And so then some program directors started going, "Would you ever want to do a show?" And I went, "Well, I don't think the morning news would let me do that, but whatever." And Dan Flanagan, who was on WBAP, 50,000 watt, our blowtorch, and he quit to become a Methodist minister in Nebraska in 1985. And as I think Reiner will tell you this, first time in history a sports talk show host has quit to become a messenger for God. We don't have it, but I got started with that, and then it lasted a long time, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Most of all, thanks to my family. It starts with Janine, 52 years later. Remember, I said that now. And my daughters, both daughters, Gina and Jennifer, are here. My son-in-laws, they're here. One of my grandkids, I've got one grandkid studying this summer in Italy. And nothing that came from me. And one of them is at a 7th grade swimming party. God bless her. And the other one is not feeling well, the 4th grader. But anyway, they would have been here tonight. My sister Ellen is here, and God bless my mother and father, but my mother Margaret, who was a longtime newspaper person, makes me a 3rd generation newspaper person. And I've always had, no matter where I might wander down the road, I always had a strong foundation of family to come back to. And man, if you don't have that, you are lost out there on the road, really lost. So thanks to my family for all that. In retirement, I do nothing. I'm the very best at doing nothing, and I don't get started until noon. But I will say this is something. This ain't nothing. This is something, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Randy. So Jeff Gwynn's books have lately chronicled violent lives and times, but he's also written the autobiography of Santa Claus. He's a Fort Worth-based former investigative reporter and book editor of the Star-Telegram, and he also wrote 2013's Manson, The Life and Times of Charles Manson. Jeff Gwynn can't be with us tonight because he's not feeling well, but here to accept the award on his behalf is Carlton Stowers.
My only real job tonight is to tell you that Jeff very much appreciates this honor. He is the old school type newspaper man who loved the job, loved the people in it, and I'm sorry he couldn't be here because of some medical situations that he's dealing with. I think probably everyone here has some story to tell about that moment, that event that sort of moved your career from Port Arthur, Port Lavaca, or Port whatever it was that Randy was at, to the Dallas Morning News or whatever. Jeff swears this is a true story. He was book editor of the Star-Telegram, and it was coming close to the Christmas season, and one of his editors says, "We gotta have a Christmas story." Everybody that's ever been in the newspaper business has heard that before. Jeff wound up going to the Fort Worth Library and poking around and got some history of how the whole Santa Claus myth started. Wrote a nice piece for the Star-Telegram, and lo and behold, an editor, a book publishing editor, said, "You need to do a book on that." And Jeff immediately passed. Said, "Not interested." Now then, a few days later, he's got a day off, and he's at home trying to score some points with his wife, who's working, by vacuuming the den. He said as he was vacuuming the den, he heard a voice that said, "You are right to believe in me." I don't know if this is true, but it's a damn good story. He said he rushed straight up to his office upstairs and wrote for the next 3.5 hours. When he came downstairs, his wife's vacuum cleaner was smoking and destroyed. So he had to do two things: buy her a new vacuum cleaner and finish a book that was ultimately titled The Autobiography of Santa Claus, which has been printed in umpteen languages, has been on the New York Times bestseller list, is a perennial holiday season must-buy, all because he heard some voice while he was vacuuming the damn living room. But I find that to be an interesting story, and he swears by it. But that's not all. He wouldn't tell you these things if he were here tonight. But since becoming a book author, he has had a pretty remarkable run. His History of the Seminole Negroes, book titled Our Land Before We Die, won the TCU Book Award. Go Down Together, the story of the legendary outlaws Bonnie and Clyde, was a finalist for the Mystery Writers of America's Edgar Allan Poe Award. His book on Charles Manson earned him a place on the New York Times bestseller list, where the autobiography of Santa Claus had once appeared. The Last Gunfight, his examination of the famous OK Corral event, has received wonderful reviews. And when he's not writing nonfiction, he's written a trilogy of Western fiction. He's a member of the Texas Literary Hall of Fame, Texas Institute of Letters, which is to say that Jeff Gwynn is a very deserving person to receive this honor tonight, and I know he is almost as delighted as I am. Thank you.
Our next honoree, Sylvia Komatsu, is a Fort Worth native. Her career at Dallas-based KERA has been ongoing since 1979. She says she grew up at the public television station as a reporter for a nightly news analysis program. She's now Executive Vice President, Chief Content Officer for KERA and KXT Radio, overseeing a division that also includes educational services and the station's website. Everyone, please help me honor Sylvia Komatsu.
Thank you, Christy, and good evening, everyone. It is terrific to see all of you here tonight. I wanted to share how I first heard the news about the awards. I did not get an email from Ed Bark. I got a visit from the wonderful Paula Ainsworth. Where are you, Paula? So many, if not most of you, know Paula. She's a longtime colleague of mine at KERA's, and of course she's the wife of the legendary journalist Hugh Ainsworth. And she broke the news to me in her very typical trademark Paula way. Right? Very warm and very effusive and so enthusiastic. And then she paused. And she said with great concern in her voice, "Now, Sylvia, don't worry. This does not mean that you're old." Well, I'm not so sure about that. It's going on 37 years now. It's hard for me to believe. What I do know for sure is that this is such a tremendous honor to be with all of you here tonight. When I looked at the list of 2016 honorees, it was completely overwhelming to think about being in such amazing, stellar company with individuals that I have long admired and that I deeply respect. And then when you think about the previous honorees, well, I count among them some of my personal mentors, my role models, individuals who have been so very kind and generous to me along the way. So I'm very, very grateful. With that in mind, I am very honored to accept this award on behalf of myself and all of my colleagues at KERA, because I've had the great privilege to work with the best colleagues over the years. And so this is very much a shared and collective award. I've had the great fortune to work with so many wonderful teams at KERA. So again, on behalf of all of my colleagues, I thank the Press Club of Dallas. I also want to acknowledge my family who's here today. I've got my husband, George, my father, Al. I also have my brother and sister-in-law, Carl and Nancy, and they are my greatest supporters. You're always there for me, and I'm grateful to you. And I just want to salute all the honorees and all the journalists who are here tonight. Aren't we lucky to be able to do work that we love and that we find meaningful? And I feel, yes, for all of our journalists here. And I feel especially lucky that I've found a home at KERA for all these years where everyone there is just so passionate about our mission of public service. So again, my deepest thanks to the Press Club and to each and every one of you. Thank you.
So if you remember back to the introduction that Frank gave of me, he mentioned that I have been interested in journalism since I was a little kid. Since I was 9, I was fascinated. And when I was in high school here in Dallas, I had to write a senior thesis project. I decided to make it on minorities in journalism. And I called a bunch of people, and the first person to call me back was John McKay. And he invited me to come spend the day with him at WFAA. And Gloria, you were there too. I know you don't remember. I think it was a Saturday back then. But they were the first people that I ever met in television news. So obviously you can say that they helped influence me on the road that I'm on right now. John McKay is in his 4th decade at WFAA after arriving from Omaha in 1984. He started anchoring on weekends in 1988, and by 1991 he'd moved up to the co-anchor slot on the weekday 5 p.m. newscasts. And in 1993, John became part of a rotating tri-anchor system at 10 p.m. before joining fellow North Texas legend Gloria Campos in August 2002 as part of a twosome that endured until she retired in March of 2014. His proudest achievement of late is earning a PhD in philosophy in 2015 from the University of Texas at Dallas. Please welcome John McKay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, gee, you know, the nicest part about all this, I think, is when they tell you that you're a living legend, and you're a living legend. I've always found it fascinating that when I was in the 4th grade, living in Madrid, Spain, a man pointed a rifle out of the corner window of the 4th floor below us and killed the President of the United States. And I remember that like yesterday. My dad was in the military, again, and I was living in a country where Francisco Franco was in charge. And I always found it fascinating because I never really thought that I would live in Dallas. But I think that's probably when I started looking at what was going on in the world around me, was that particular incident. I know that my mother started crying, and I know that our neighbors started crying. I know that a lot of people have forgotten this. They thought the Russians did it at first. And when you live on a military base and they think the Russians did something, it's a little tense in those days. I want to say thank you. My wife is not here with us tonight. She's a bit under the weather, but I want to say thank you to her because it has not been easy. You've heard already that being the spouse of someone in the media it's pretty tough. It's very difficult. And when you're going to school at the same time and you get up on a Saturday morning and you tell your wife, I got to read a book today, I got to read another book tomorrow, and I got to write a 35-page paper by the end of next week. And you did that for 7 years. They earn a little rest after that. I also want to thank, because this thought has been with me ever since I moved to Texas. The day that John Kennedy was killed here, if I had been applying for a job in Texas, I probably would not have gotten that job. Not because I would not have had the requisite skill, but because in those days that was a different Texas than the Texas we celebrate now. And when people ask me, you live in Texas? You're kidding me. And I say, no, I live in Texas and I'm proud to live in Texas. I'm proud of the journalism that we do in Texas. It's true, all of the rest of the legends will tell you that the business is changing and it's not necessarily changing in ways we always like. I'll certainly list myself among those who are worried about some things that I see. But I've worked with some wonderful, exceptional people in trying to create an environment where we can tell people about what's going on in the world around us. I got a scholarship from the Press Club of Omaha when I went to Creighton University. I always describe myself as a Jesuit-educated Baptist. You get the Jesuits at Creighton, and then I'm a Baptist, so that's kind of a confusing combination. But it really fit me in well for coming to Texas, because with the Jesuits you have to spend a lot of time thinking about your own life and what you want to do. And the same is true when you're going into graduate school. And if you're a Baptist, you know good and well there's a certain guilt thing that probably goes with that. In conclusion, I want to thank, and this may sound a bit strange, but I want to thank all of the people who over the years have struggled and complained and argued and fought so that people who look like me can work in this business. A lot of young people will tell you, I did this all on my own. I did not do this on my own. I did it because other people who will never be recognized decided that I was worth their taking a risk on. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your inviting me and our team into your homes every night. Appreciate the Press Club of Dallas. appreciate all that you do. I hope that, probably a couple of years I'll probably be retiring. And Randy, I'm truly looking forward to getting up at noon. It's a wonderful business. Yes, it is changing. Yes, we have a strange society. Yes, I have never seen, and my dissertation actually has to do with an election like we have now. I have never seen an election like this. I've never read about an election like this. But we've had some strange ones. But we're going to cover it, and I want you to enjoy it. And the things that you do see and do not like in society, I urge you to continue to raise hell about them. Thank you very much.
Back in 1972, our next honoree, Bob Phillips, started his half-hour weekend show, For Country Reporter. It premiered on KDFW, and 14 years later, he started his own company, Phillips Productions, and he syndicated Texas Country Reporter throughout the state. It was known as 8 Country Reporter here in Dallas, and during that time, he also became known throughout Texas as the official spokesman for Dairy Queen. Texas Country Reporter is now co-hosted by Phillips and his wife, Kelly. It's still on TV stations throughout the state and nationally on cable's RFD TV, and it continues to deliver on its mission to introduce viewers to oddball characters, thought-provoking artists, and everyday heroes who are making the world a better place. Please help me honor Bob Phillips.
Standing up here, I'm kind of reminded of that famous soundbite from Barbara Jordan, which, by the way, comes from something we did at WFAA, a show called Texans, way back then, where Barbara Jordan realized where she'd been and where she'd come from and where she was today, and she says in her famous speech patterns, "Barbara Jordan, what are you doing here?" Well, I'm wondering the same damn thing right now. What are you doing here? Let me set a couple of people at ease real quick. Randy Galloway, your family's here, and I want you to know right now you can rest. 1972 New Orleans Super Bowl VI is never going to come up. And I've decided here tonight those stories are going to die with me. He talks about getting up at noon. When I knew him, he was lucky to get in bed by noon. So, and Steve Blow, Steve, I know you're a very spiritual person, but I want you to understand that some of us told our parents we were porn stars so that we wouldn't have to admit that we'd gone into journalism. So, just to get those straight very quickly here. My dear friend and colleague of almost 30 years now, Michael Grant, has always encouraged me to look at things from a 50,000-foot perspective. That way, he says, you can get the big picture without being down in the weeds. Makes sense. So I've tried to follow his advice. He's also a big believer in looking back and trying to connect the dots in your life and see how you went from here to there. So as I sat and tried to ponder why in the world I was here with all of these esteemed journalists who are being honored here tonight and why it was that I fit in, I decided that maybe it would help if I tried to put my career in a timeline of television broadcast history. So here it goes, my feeble attempt. We're going to go all the way back to 1930. No, I wasn't around then. But in 1930 was the year that the federal government proclaimed that almost every home in America that wanted indoor plumbing could now have it. This is going to fit here in just a minute. At the end of that decade, in 1939, the NBC television network signed on the air, the first of the big 3 networks that would rule television for the next several decades. Now, I, in fact, do not know that there is a connection between indoor plumbing and the first television network. As a matter of fact, they seem very opposite to me because one pushes stuff into your house and the other pushes stuff out of your house. But I do know that I have talked to people who say that it was not coincidental. Well, let's fast forward to the day that I was born, which was in June of 1951. June 23rd will be my birthday, 1951. And on the day that I was born, a customer of my dad's gave him a television set. Gave it to him. My dad told me many years later, the guy gave it to him because he said, I bought it, I took it home, I plugged it in, I watched it for a while, and there's not a damn thing on it worth watching. Luckily, that guy apparently did not have a Nielsen or a Rentrack or anything like that, because television would have never made it had they heard opinions like that. By the way, my dad then took both me and the new TV set home to the apartment that we had over on Columbia Avenue. And the guy decided that my dad must have come into some money because he had a new son and a fancy television. So he doubled the rent and we were forced to move. So Michael, I want to let you know you're correct. Looking back, I have connected the dots, and my life has been affected by television since the very day that I was born. Yes. Let's fast forward a little bit more. Actually, we'll go back for just a second, because in 1950, right before I was born, only 10% of the homes in America had a television set. 1950, 10%. Fast forward to 1960, 90% of the homes in America had a television. That quick. Sounds like the development of the internet, doesn't it? Very much the same. And here in North Texas, a lot of people used those television sets in November of 1963, when a television pioneer who would become a television legend announced the assassination of John F. Kennedy, who of course was killed just steps from where we are right now. Now, go forward again 6 more years from then, November of 1969, when that same television pioneer who would become a legend hired a skinny, black-haired, untrained, wet behind the ears, 18-year-old college freshman to be a gopher, after that 18-year-old kid said he would do pretty much anything if only he could get a job, any job, at that TV station that this guy would pretty much ran. I don't know why the great Eddie Barker took a chance and hired me, who knew nothing and had no qualifications. But I do know that he went to his grave, and I will go to mine knowing that the great Eddie Barker changed my life. And I think about it all the time. He was a giant. I went to work there January 2nd of 1970 was my first day on the payroll, and I quickly went from gopher to photographer to editor to reporter to assignments editor to producer, director, anchor, etc. I did just about everything that you could do in those days in television news. And by the way, the pay for all of those jobs back then was pretty much the same, which was just barely more than minimum wage. And you didn't get to leave this job behind to go to that next one. You just had to add the responsibilities to your repertoire, and you were responsible for all of that stuff too. I didn't mind a bit, because I was a poor kid from East Dallas who was working in the big time of television news, and I was loving every minute of it. Well, in late 1972, a couple of us reporters and photographers from Channel 4, which was then the CBS affiliate, of course, we went out and produced what was supposed to be a one-time only, an OTO, as they say in the biz, a special program about Texas. And this program, the goal was to show that television did not just happen, as it seem to, on the streets of downtown Dallas and in the streets of downtown Fort Worth. That things of interest actually happen in small towns and out-of-the-way places out on the back roads. In doing that, the real reason behind this was we were supposed to help brand Channel 4, KDFW, as for country. And somebody decided that there were a couple of Nielsen books that were out there in the hinterlands, and that if we did stories from the back roads, somebody watching might say they watched Channel 4. It was to help ratings, I have to tell you. So we did that one time only special, and for some reason, and I still don't understand why, people liked it. And they called the TV station and they wrote letters back then and said, hey, are you going to do some more? So the guys in the carpeted office said, hey, do another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and it kept going like that. And even though I can now look back at those dots in my life, I can understand how, but I still don't know why I'm still here producing and hosting that same show some 43 and a half years later. But here I am. Of course, it's now called Texas Country Reporter, and for the last 30 years it has been. And we're on in every market every week all over Texas, and on a small cable outfit called RFD TV, where people in Manhattan and Seattle and places watch this little show, this insignificant show about Texas, and send us emails and stuff. We have followings around the world, and it still blows my mind. I learned a whole lot after Eddie Barker took that chance and hired me as a kid. But probably the most important thing that I ever learned was that television is a team sport. And no matter what individual thinks that they're a big deal and very important in television all by themselves, it just ain't so. Because for every one of us who ever put our ugly mugs up in front of a camera, there's a whole bunch of people who are working real hard to make us look good. And I want you to know that I know that I have, for some reason, been able to stand on the shoulders of some giants over the years. And had that not happened, I look back and I wonder, well, what would I have done? And the only answer I can come up with is, well, I might be working at the Dunlap Swain Texaco station where my dad worked for most of his life, and where, by the way, I too worked to make ends meet during my first 10 years in the glamorous world of television. I am humbled and I am honored to be recognized with this tonight, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much.
The Old Gray Wolf is a charter personality on Dallas's The Ticket Radio, which Mike Reiner co-founded in 1994 as the city's first sports talk venue. It was a novelty at the time, but it has since spawned two rival stations. Mike Reiner was raised in Oak Cliff and graduated from Kimball High School before starting his radio career in 1979. And for the past 22 years, he's become synonymous with KTCK's The Hard Line, where his blunt, old-school sports opinions and cantankerous temperament go hand in hand. Everyone, please help me welcome and honor Mike Reiner.
Thank you. I am absolutely blown away by this. To be in this illustrious company tonight and to be honored along with people that I've read and seen on TV over the years. To think that I'm a part of this is just absolutely overwhelming. People like Bob Phillips, who invented Texana before any of us had any idea what that was. People like the consummate newsman down here, the great John McKay. And of course, Randy Galloway. Randy and I used to go at each other pretty hard on the radio over the years. That was all in the spirit of competition. And I certainly hope we're cool now because you've always been cool with me. I cannot imagine learning more about the great game of baseball from anybody else than I learned from you. We started the Ticket in 1994, and I was around then for it, and I talked several other guys into committing career suicide pretty much along with me. They went along with it, and there are 4 or 5 of us day oneers who are still there today, and it has been just a tremendous ride. It's turned into one of the most imitated radio stations that you will find anywhere in this great land of ours. And on the one hand, that's kind of cool. On the other, I wish somebody would come along and show that they could do it better than we do, but that has not happened yet. But along the way, a lot's been said about the Ticket over the years, and some of that hasn't been too bad. But through it all, there have been a few that stand out with me. A couple weeks ago, we were out at a road show, and this guy comes up to me, and he told me that he had just lost his son to an illness, and started telling me about how, you know, through it all, I would turn on the radio at 3 o'clock every day. I would listen to you guys, and that really helped me get through it, and I really appreciated that. And just last week, this woman came up and said that she had lost her son. I said, oh my, what happened? She said, well, he didn't die. He's just going down a really bad road, and I don't think we're ever going to be able to get him back. But every day I listen to you guys, and that takes me out of it for a little while, and I want you to know that I really appreciate that. And that just showed me, and there's one thing I can tell you all, it is this: don't ever think that the words you write and the stories you write about and the things we say and the things we talk about don't matter. I know it's a different world out there right now, and it's changed a lot since most of us came into the business, and there are things that have gone down that we could have never imagined back then. But don't ever think that those things don't matter, because they do. They absolutely do. Thank you.
Our next honoree, David Webb, is also known as the Rare Reporter. David is best known for reporting and his columns in the Dallas Voice, which is a weekly newspaper for the city's LGBT community. Before joining the Dallas Voice in 2001, he worked with the Southern Poverty Law Center in Montgomery, Alabama. He retired from the Dallas Voice in 2008, but remains a contributing writer for the paper and freelances for other publications. And he also has his own The Rare Reporter blog and lives on a ranch at Cedar Creek Lake. Very nice. Please welcome David Webb.
Well, I was incredibly surprised to be honored with this. I'm very grateful. Everything I've heard tonight is a lot to follow, and I am really pleased to be here. I started my journalism career when I was a kid in Childress, Texas. There was a weekly newspaper, and they didn't deliver to houses, so I think I was about 10 years old, but I would go down there and they would give me 10 newspapers, and I would take them around and sell them for a dime each, and I got a nickel of it, so I could make 50 cents. And that was, so I knew from a pretty early age what I wanted to do, and I graduated from the University of Texas at Austin, and I didn't have a clue what I was going to do after that. I was a pretty good student, but I was kind of frightened, and I will always be grateful to the first editor who hired me. It was now defunct. It was News Texan, and they had a lot of suburban newspapers. It was owned by the Belo Corporation, and I went to work there, and I covered every single beat, everything but sports. And I wasn't any good at that. I think someone wanted me to go cover a football game, and I said, "You're going to have to tell me a little bit about the game." And they were like, "Never mind." And so I never did that, but I went to work for the Valley Morning Star in Harlingen, down in the lower Rio Grande Valley, and this strange disease cropped up in the early 80s, and no one knew exactly what it was, but it was afflicting gay men, and then we started, it was New York and San Francisco, and then it spread to Dallas, and I had friends who were dying, it was awful. It was not unusual to go to a funeral a week, and that is, that's very truthful. And I started realizing that I started covering that. And, it was kind of difficult to get mainstream newspapers to report about that at the time. And then as the LGBT rights movement grew, and at that time I was working at the Dallas Times-Herald, and I went out and they decided they wanted me to cover the airport and the airline business, which I didn't want to do, but I did. And I went out to the airport, and William Wayburn and his colleagues at the Dallas Gay and Lesbian Alliance were staging a protest, and I thought, this is just incredibly brave. I can't believe what they're doing. And I started talking to William, and I felt emboldened to start covering these issues because I realized there was a huge void. The mainstream media just wasn't covering it. So I went to the Dallas Observer, and my fights with the editor there were legendary. That was the only newspaper that covered gay issues, but their idea of coverage was 2 or 3 stories a week. A year, 2 or 3 stories a year. And so we got into these battles, and I finally realized what I had to do was I knew what needed to be covered, and I would just write the stories, and I would tell her I was working on something else. And then, the deadline would come around, and she didn't have anything else to run. So, it went in the newspaper. And I guess so. Around 1991, I applied for a job at the Southern Poverty Law Center, and to my amazement, they hired me, and I truly was amazed. And I went to Montgomery, Alabama, and I found myself doing undercover work, going to Ku Klux Klan meetings, at public rallies, and pretending, just to be a mainstream reporter. It was an inspiring job. I just can't tell you what it was like to work with Morris Dees and Richard Cohen. They were and he was so incredibly supportive of me and my desire to report about LGBT issues, and it was. And I did that for a little over 2 years, but I just realized, that I had a mission, and it was like journalism, and I came back to Dallas, and I just applied for a job at the Dallas Voice, and I went to work there, and it just kind of all fell together. I never planned on being a specialist in LGBT issues. It's just the way it worked out, and I'm grateful I did it. And I want to say, how proud I am and appreciative of my colleagues in, in mainstream publications at the Dallas Morning News, the Channel 8, the Channel 5, all of you went, it's like I never hesitated to say, why aren't you reporting this stuff? And, the response was, we're going to do it. And you did. All of you did. And so we would have never grown to the point that we have the type of coverage, LGBT coverage that we do, if you had not recognized the need for it as well and assisted the community. And so it's, I'm like I said, I'm just incredibly proud, to be here and grateful to you. And thank you very much.
And thanks to David, and listening to David's story and all the stories of our honorees tonight just reinforces how interesting and dynamic our profession is. So please help me thank and congratulate one more time all of tonight's 2016 honorees. And that is the end of my portion of tonight's program. I'd like to welcome back Frank Lipio.
Christy, thank you. Thank you for lending your time and talent. You're wonderful as always. Second year in a row. You'll get the call next year as well. I'm not a great rapper, but there's good stuff in here for you. Thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, appreciate it. Wow, such great stories. That was awesome. Thank you to all our honorees, our inductees tonight. I also want to mention some notables that are here. Brett Shipp, thank you for being here, sir. Rebecca Rodriguez, thank you. Rebecca Lopez, thank you for being here. Ron Corning, I see you in the back of the room. Thank you for being here. I think I saw Bob Ray Sanders walk in. If I've missed somebody. Other notables, appreciate you being here very much. I also want to mention we need you. I know that some of you have been Press Club members in the past. Something very bad happened several years ago. We're reinventing our club. We need you back. We need you re-engaged. So tonight when you get home, tomorrow morning, pressclubdallas.com, click on membership. We need you, please. July 7th is our Meet the New Candidates night for our new board members at the Stoneleigh Hotel. We have that every year there in the lobby. Welcome to join us for that. After that is our annual meeting on August 8th at KERA, where our new board members will be inducted, so we invite you to that. And a special program that Ed Bark is putting together for September 7th, 4 days, I believe, before the Cowboys season home opener. Babe Laufenberg, Christy Sherrill, Ed, help me. Brad Sham, and Mike Ducey will be the host. So September 7th, there'll be some autographed Cowboys memorabilia to auction off, so join us for that. We appreciate it. So we have a special announcement this evening to end this very notable night. It has been more than a decade since the Press Club has had a juried awards competition. You'll all remember that. It's been too long. The actions of one rogue person do not define our club. I want to repeat that. The actions of one person do not define our club. We define our club, and tonight we are going to give it a new definition and a new purpose. Since 1948, the Press Club Since 1948, the Press Club of Dallas has been the leading professional organization for North Texas journalists, communications professionals, and students, and an advocate for First Amendment rights. Membership is considered an honor that members are proud to highlight in resumes, bios, and memorials. We have new momentum, we have new energy, and tonight we are announcing a new exclusive awards program. We all know that the Edward R. Murrow Award stands for. The award has the weight of one of the most respected and revered journalists behind it. It stands for greatness. The Press Club Award program will be focused on excellence in investigative journalism and be awarded to one reporter working in print, broadcast, radio, or online based on submissions of the body of their work. The board of directors will work over the next few months to define the awards program, announce it, and seek nominations. And in future years, we will likely expand the number of categories. We're taking a bold step tonight. But we begin with the first step, and we are very fortunate to have someone among us whose name and work represents greatness. Tonight, we are announcing that this new award will be called the Hugh Ainsworth Award for Excellence in Investigative Journalism. Where is Mr. Ainsworth? Hugh, please come to the stage. Paula. I'm not done yet. Goodbye, Katie. Hello, Huey. Goodbye, Katie. Hello, Huey. Hugh Ainsworth, suffer through this, sir. Hugh Ainsworth has been a journalist for more than 65 years and a member of the Press Club of Dallas since 1960. He has worked at both the Dallas Morning News, the Dallas Times-Herald, as well as Newsweek, the Washington Times, UPI, the Arkansas Gazette, and ABC News 2020 program. He is the author of 2 books on the JFK assassination, co-author of 2 books on Ted Bundy, and 4 other books on various crime scenarios. While Hugh has done more than covering the Kennedy assassination, he, of course, is most known for that. As Bob Schieffer said, no one knows more about the assassination than Hugh Ainsworth. While others have peddled lies, spun conspiracy theories, and offered outlandish speculation, he was always stuck to the facts and just the facts. He is the only journalist eyewitness to 3 seminal events: the assassination, the arrest of Oswald, the shooting of Oswald. He also uncovered the escape route, broke the story about Oswald's threatening letter to the FBI 10 days before the assassination, and somehow, sir, slipped Oswald's Russian diaries to Life magazine. He was also a 4-time Pulitzer finalist and a winner of more than 90 local, state, and national awards, including an Emmy last year for a documentary featuring 27 persons connected with the JFK assassination. He is a former president of the club, a former president of the Texas chapter of Sigma Chi Delta Chi, and Paula Ainsworth, in the front row of KRA, has been married for 29 years this month. Hugh, it is only fitting that you receive the first award which bears your name, the Hugh Ainsworth Award for Excellence in Investigative Journalism. And it has the image of Hugh. Here you go, sir. Congratulations to you. The microphone is yours.
Well, it's stunning. I thank you so much. It's very stunning. I knew nothing about this. I do go to the board meetings. I don't know when they came up with this or why, but I thank you so very much. And I'm so pleased to see all of you here, because I think this program we have going is really valuable. We reach people that some people have forgotten, perhaps, but people that are noteworthy, people that are deserving. And I'm very pleased that we're going to have our awards program start. I don't know when, next year, this year, later. I'm very pleased that the club is back. We're doing some things that are exciting. We're doing some things that are worthwhile. And I hope that all of you can participate in some way and will. But thank you so much. This is so very stunning, and I'm going to take it home.
And that concludes our program. Thank you very much for attending. We really appreciate it. Thank you.